Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. So Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for sharing your Saturday afternoon with us yet again and allowing us to share with you. As you know, we're very passionate about the things that we're sharing in these series of seminars. I just want to reiterate what my husband said last time. The reason we're so passionate about it is because this isn't a topic we thought, oh, what kind of fancy seminar can we give people? But the quotes and the realizations we're sharing with you over the course of these seminars were life-transforming quotes that we heard at a time when we were going through difficulty. We began hearing things from Prabhupada and they began connecting. And as we began to apply the things that we were hearing, the biggest part of the transformation happened for us over the course of 5 years, in 1996 and 2001. And in the course of those 5 years, our lives, our whole attitude to Sadhu Sanga and the experience we're having in Krishna consciousness changed dramatically. And then when we came down to the manor, when we returned to the manor in 2002, we realized that a lot of devotees were experiencing the same difficulties that we had been experiencing. And because the last 5 years of our lives made such a huge difference to us, we thought, let's try and share it with other people. But when we were first doing it, we didn't think in terms of principles. We were just hearing things from Prabhupada. And then we think, okay, let's apply this. But when we wanted to share it, we thought, how do we share this with people? Because we just heard the quotes almost ad hoc. So we began to cluster the quotes together. Quotes that were similar, we put together as to show to devotees as evidence. This is what we changed. Look, this is the things we've heard. This is why we changed. It's not just a one-off quote. Prabhupada says this point again and again. And we've tried applying it, and it really does help. And then we thought, what do we call these things? We clustered them together and we realized there were 16 clusters of a lot of evidences on 16 different topics. And then we decided to call them 16 principles because those of you who have repeated with you or have repeated on your smartphones, please go to chapter 16, the very last verse of chapter 16, which is I think verse 24. And I'll show you why we decided to call them the 16 principles. So I'm only standing up to come closer to the light because my eye's not that good. So if you're on 16, so now that's your sheet from last week.
Oh, thank you.
And this is the sheet here. I've given you all your sheets back, or if you didn't hand in a sheet, I'm giving you a new sheet. So that any questions you have, please don't let them just fall away into the thin air. Write your questions down. Even if you don't finish them today, we'll make sure by the last session that any doubts or questions or objections people have, we manage to touch on it. So, and that's why I'm giving you sheets so that you can keep things, jot them down and give them back to us. Yeah, so if you see 1624, the last paragraph, has anyone got 1624 open? Yes? So if you have it open, Kalyani, maybe you can write down, not write down, read out the first sentence of the last paragraph. And if more of you have it, you can read it yourselves too. Do you read nice and loud?
In human society, aversion to the principles of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all fall downs.
Yes. So here Prabhupada talks about the principles of understanding. It's the plural. He doesn't say the principle of understanding. He said the principles of understanding. And our own experience over the previous 5 years, before we came down and wanted to share it with others, was we learned principles. We'd never thought of it in terms of principles, but we had learned things that had actually helped us and taken us from, I mean, my state was much worse than my husband. I'd lost my faith. I was on my way out. And my husband was like, listen to Prabhupada, you know, trying to keep me in. But I've undergone a complete transformation for the better. So we realized maybe these are principles. And if you don't apply these principles, that's what Prabhupada's talking about. So we've called them the 16 principles of good Sadhu Sangha. That's why we came up with the term. Because I want you to really understand that we're not just giving a smart seminar. We're sharing with you things that really impacted positively in our lives. And the reason we're sharing it with you is because it's our great hope it will seriously and positively impact on your lives. Yes?
Excuse me, this principle came from your experience?
Principles, the word principles came from this principle.
Yeah, the 16 principles.
These principles didn't come directly from my side. There were things we were hearing. We're going to share with you some of the quotes. All the quotes, because we had limited time, we were going to take you to the webpage, but we realized it would be much more than 3.5 hours to take you through the webpage. But there's a webpage, Improving Our Sadhu Sangha, and we have all these 16 principles as one of the many, and we've got loads of quotes on those. We've just taken a few for each principle to show you that we're not just talking off the top of our head. But we were listening to Prabhupada and we were hearing similar instructions again and again. And we clustered those principles, we clustered those instructions together, and that's what's here. Then we applied them and we realized they really work. So then we called those clusters principles because of that. Is that everything? So I'm going to do the first 8 principles. And my husband's going to do the last 8, which we thought was a little more complicated. So I took the easy part. So you do the complicated ones, and I'll do the easy ones. So we'll start. So 16 principles of good Sadhu Sangha. And I'm going to get people reading aloud. So the first principle, we'll start from this side round this time. So if you'd like to read, what is the first principle?
Hear from a liberated, pure devotee of Krishna.
Yes. Actually, I just wanted to say a little something more in terms of the introduction. That we're going to be edging you towards making some profound changes. And some of these profound changes you will find, you may find, difficult to make. That's why we did last week's seminar. Last week's seminar, the purpose of it, and we have it hopefully in audio, so if you want to see it, and I recommend you to see it, all the quotes there were simply to help you realize the importance of this. Help you to realize the life-changing importance of this. So it will motivate you to be willing and open to making the kinds of changes we're going to talk about this week and next week. Next week we're really going to talk about changes. Is that okay? So we'll carry on. Just one more time, Sanga, you could read the first principle.
So principle 1, hear from a liberated, pure devotee of Krishna.
Yes. So let's look at some evidences. You can read the first evidence.
Okay. The topmost benediction for those who are living in this material world and are subjected to the repetition of birth and death is association with pure devotees. One should search out such pure devotees and remain with them. That will make one completely happy, even though living within the material world.
So this point came up last week as well, but it's a principle, so we included it this week. So now, I was very impressed with your effective hearing last time. So you read this, can you tell me some key points from this quote? What is being said? What's the most beneficial thing that can happen, and what's the benefit of that?
So the most beneficial thing that one can receive is the association of pure devotees.
Yes.
And the benefit of that is that even though the material world is a very difficult place to live in, one can still be completely happy, not just a little bit, but completely if they stay in that association.
Fantastic. Did everyone get that? The greatest thing that can happen to us in life is to get the association of our faith. And if we take that association, we will be completely happy, even in this miserable place. Thank you so much. And I just want to say that you are evincing one of the main principles you do. You're doing very good reflective hearing.
Thank you.
So, and encouraging all of you, when I ask you to reflect back, don't add comments or thoughts, just reflect back the message, because that's one of the key principles. So, Adi Gopi, let's get you reading the next principle. This is still evidences for the first principle. Go ahead.
The summary is that one has to first of all seek the association of pure devotees, who not only are learned in the Vedanta, but are self-realized souls and unalloyed devotees of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality Godhead.
Thank you very much. We discussed this quote last time too, and many people focused on the fact that he doesn't have to be just learned, he just has to be self-realized. But I want to point your attention, it says not only learned, that means he is learned. He is learned, but being learned is not sufficient, but he must be learned. That's the primary. Learned in the Vedanta, he knows the Vedas, and he's also, what else is he?
Self-realized.
Self-realized, yes. And an unalloyed devotee. That means he's off the bodily concept of life. If his body's under threat, he's not under threat. If his mind's under threat, he's not under threat. Does anyone remember the verse from the Gita that tells us the symptoms of such a self-realized person? I'll give you a clue. 54. Who knows that? Brahma-bhuta prasanatma. Let's say it together.
Brahma-bhuta prasanatma na shochati na kamshati samat sarveshu bhuteshu mat bhaktim labate param.
That's the beginning of self-realization. It's not the end, but it's the beginning. So we're looking for devotees who never lament nor hanker for anything. They're not disturbed when people vilify them or when people, glorify them. Nor do they see a difference between rich and poor. Good. They see everyone equally. So that's the kind of association we're looking for. And they're learned in Vedanta. So let's carry on with other evidences. So this is still evidence for the first principle. Let me see how many of you remember the first principle. Say that if you know the first principle that we're showing evidences for.
Hearing from a liberated, pure devotee.
Yes, thank you. Hearing from a liberated, pure devotee devotee. And we're looking at evidences to support that. So this is the third, and there's loads more evidences on the webpage. Go ahead, Annabelle.
One should take shelter of a pure devotee who has nothing to do with this material world, but is simply engaged in devotional service. By serving him only, one can transcend the qualitative material condition. In this verse, it is recommended, Yogeshvara Upasanaya, that one serve the lotus feet of the topmost yogi or the devotee. To serve the topmost devotee means to hear from him about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you. This is such an important quote. I'm going to try and guide your hearing. What is the only way of transcending the material world? What is the only way? Call out if you've heard it. Go ahead, David.
To hear from a pure devotee.
To hear from a pure devotee. How does Prabhupada say to serve? He says to serve. But you went very nice. You put serve and you heard down here. To serve. What does it mean to serve? What does it mean to serve the topmost devotee? You put it. You said that is what. When we say serve the pure devotee, what does it mean? Please tell me again.
To hear from him.
That is service. We in ISKCON associate service with physical work, but we don't hear properly. But Prabhupada is saying service means to hear properly from the pure devotee. And that's a key kind of like paradigm shift that we'd like to help you make. Service is hearing. And the things we do with our physical body become service if we're hearing correctly. That's one of the quotes we saw last time, that we're not hearing properly. It's all Kami's work. even in the temple. So we carry on.
This is very nice, as it says. The serve is one of the last line, but it goes say the serving him only.
Yes, that's the only way we can get out of this material world. Only way. And it has to be the top of us to believe. You know, you hearing a madhya is not going to get you out of this material world. You have to hear a Mahabhagavat. That's the only way we're going to get out of this material world. We have to hear the Mahabhagavat. And the way we serve the Mahabhagavat is hearing. So let's carry on. So this is principle 2. And I forget your name. I know I have asked you before. Megan. So Megan, are you comfortable to read aloud? Yes, can you read with a nice loud voice?
Principle 2. Discuss Srila Prabhupada's purports with other devotees.
Yes. Let's all repeat this because a lot of us are very addicted to passive personal reading. We will read ourselves, or we will go to a class and sit passively. But principle 2, the next paradigm shift we'd like to make, is the best way to serve Srila Prabhupada, to hear him, is to discuss. The discussion is interactive, and to discuss with another devotee. So this is the second, and now let's look at some evidences. Maybe you can read the first evidence. This one, by the way, was a major shift for us when we heard this, and I told it would be like an aha quote for you as well. Okay.
Generally, people cannot understand, but if one understands, he becomes liberated. In some way or other, it is not very difficult. Simply, we have to associate with devotees and discuss this literature. Then we will understand Krishna very easily.
I'm going to guide your hearing a little bit here. Do most people understand according to this quote?
No.
What's more often the case? That we don't understand yet. Do you remember from last week we shared a quote from 1.3.44? Why most people don't understand? Do you remember? Does anyone remember?
Pure.
Because we're not pure. Our habits aren't pure, our behavior is not pure, therefore our mind is not pure. And if you're anything like me, without discussion, I'm not understanding a thing because my mind is wandering all over the place. I sit in a passive class and my mind's all over the place. Be honest. How many of you read a passage or whatever you do, and then when you close the door, you think, did I read that? What did it say? How many of you come out of the class and say, that was a great class. What was it about? What did you say? How many of you can say what it was? So we're not hearing because our minds aren't pure, because our behavior is not pure. So that's the first thing I was saying. Most of you won't be able to understand. But then he said, if you do manage to understand, what will be the benefit? What will be the benefit? Who said that? Liberated. Did you say liberated? Did everyone else agree that's the benefit? Free. We're free from misery. We're free from bondage to the modes of nature. If we understand. Go ahead.
Can I ask you, this is if someone understands and becomes liberated, but if we didn't pass the stage of anartha, we cannot enter the Nishta.
Sorry.
If we didn't come out of, didn't pass the anartha, then we cannot come to the Nishta of the liberated state. That will basically make we can understand well, how we can become liberated if we still have anarthas.
That's a very good question. Would you please write it?
Yeah.
I want you to write your questions, not because I'm trying to bully you, but because some of your questions are so good, they merit a little discussion. And if we stop with all these good questions, we won't be able to give you our stuff. So I really encourage you to write your questions. And if we don't have the time to give them the right attention this time, we hope by the fourth session we will make time that we really begin talking about these questions. Is that okay? So that's very nice. Please do note it. So let's go back to hearing this. I'm going to continue guiding your hearing. So we've realized that it's difficult to understand most of this world, but if we do, we will be liberated. Now, Prabhupada is giving us an easy, simple way that we can all understand. What is that?
Sitting together
and discussing. He's saying, I'm going to make it easy for you. It's easy. Normally you can't understand, but I'll make it easy for you to understand if you say the word.
Discuss.
And then he says, if you do this, what will happen to you?
You will understand Krishna very easily.
Very easily. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I want these quotes to connect with your hearts. You know, sometimes we hear without hearing, but if we hear them, they're very life transforming. So that was our first evidence. We have to discuss it. Okay. So if you, Elizabeth, I think it's you now. Are you comfortable reading it aloud? Can you read it with a nice, clear voice?
The conclusion is that he participates in the discussion of devotees is both materially and spiritually benefiting. The discussion of spiritual matters among devotees is beneficial for everyone without exception.
Thank you. I'm going to read that one more time so that the video can also pick it up. The conclusion is that if one participates in a discussion of devotees, he's both materially and spiritually benefited. The discussion of spiritual matters amongst devotees is beneficial for everyone without exception. What's in it for you? The first part. What can you expect to gain by discussing Prabhupada's books? What's in it for you? What's the payback? Tell me if you've heard it. Go ahead.
You get materially benefited and spiritually benefited.
Yes. If you've got material problems, you're struggling financially, you're struggling with relationships, you're struggling with health, you don't have to work like a headless chicken trying to solve all those problems. Discuss. Krishna will help you. Even with your material stuff will help you. And also spiritually, you'll make progress. And this is one of the reasons why we're so passionate about this. Because if we were to write the checklist of the normal kinds of problems that people have in life, we ticked every box. We had every single problem on the checklist. And it's just miraculous to me how Krishna, both within our own hearts, and actually made magical arrangements outside of us that completely changed our material circumstances. So we know devotees, we don't need to be suffering if we take shelter of Krishna the way he wants us to take shelter of him. Yeah. It's a smart person, it's lazy intelligent. Get the result with less hard work but more effectively. Discuss Prabhupada's books. And then the second part of the quote. Do you remember how last week we talked about the discreetness? Do you remember this verse from 7:16? What did that say today about the discreetness? So spiritual life is easy for us?
17, you mean the 4 kinds of people?
There's 4 kinds of people who come, and then I shared a quote with you from a little paragraph.
Yeah.
What was that?
They were saying that that they're pious and then the discreetness struggle.
Yeah.
So actually, like many of us think we're pious, but actually we probably weren't, and we struggle without the association.
Yeah. The secretiners who come, we all think we're secretiners because we come. But in that purport is 7:16. Perhaps the secretiners are already more or less following. I mean, there are devotees in our community who are secretiners. You know, I can think of some that before they joined Krishna consciousness, they were following all the principles, they were studying Bhagavad Gita, you know, their families were Vaishnavas or very good Christians or very good Muslims or whatever. But I know I wasn't. And that purport says the miscreants, they find spiritual life very difficult because they're selfish, irregular, and without spiritual goals. And I know that's one of the reasons I've struggled so much before we began doing this. But here, in this quote, what does Prabhupada say? Who benefits from spiritual topics?
Everyone.
Everyone. Secretiness and discreteness, they'll all benefit. Everyone will benefit. The secretiness will go even greater than they are, and the discreteness will start making advancement too. Yeah? But there's no one who's left out of benefiting if they discuss.
This means that they have to participate, or how is it?
Pardon?
If this means that they have to participate for this beneficial, or they can be a part of, how is it? I don't get it. This beneficial, and not this, is beneficial for everyone.
Yes.
Okay, for those who participate?
For those who do it. You have to discuss.
Yeah.
Yes. If you discuss, you will benefit. And there's another thing I found, like in a family, sometimes one partner wants to do it, but the other doesn't. Or sometimes, like in our family, both partners want to do it, but the children don't. But do you remember how last week we shared that surrender means to discuss partners' books, scrutinize thinking? So let's say my karma is to suffer from an unhappy family life, difficulty with my spouse, or difficulty with my children. But if Krishna is protecting me because I'm discussing, who else is that going to impact?
Sorry. Rick.
Who else will it impact? If I'm struggling with my spouse or I'm struggling with my child, and then suddenly I start surrendering by discussing and Krishna starts protecting me, who else will it impact?
The whole family.
The whole family. So I hadn't thought of it that way, but you, Sankishan, asking that question made me realize certainly the people who are discussing will benefit, but the people connected to that person will also benefit. Because as Krishna is changing my karma, as my karma changes, the people who I'm interacting with daily, who depend on me or who are very, will also benefit. And we've experienced this.
But if you don't participate, that everyone means only those who participate.
Mostly that's the way I understand it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying there is a side benefit that those intimately connected may also benefit. So let's carry on with the evidences. What are we finding evidences for, by the way? What's the principles? Principle 2, do you remember what the principle is? Discuss. You have to discuss. Yes, please don't be shy, speak out. It's a very important part of the paradigm shift I want you to make, that I'm praying you will make, that you will speak. So this is not a passive class.
Please forgive me.
No, so sorry, thank you. This is not about you sitting passively letting us, blah, blah, blah. This is about you speaking. So what is the principle we're talking about? Discuss. And what is the discussing? So let's look at if there's more evidences. Yes, there's another evidence on this. So who's that? I think it's, is it Kunti? Kunti, please, would you like to read this?
The Vidya change of heart referred to above is visible in the reluctance to do anything not congenial with the devotional way. To create such a change of heart, conclusive discussion about Sri Krishna and his potencies is absolutely necessary.
Thank you. So I'm going to guide you here in the Sanga. What is the thing we're trying to achieve? First of all, we're not trying to first dance with the gopis when we're still discretiness. What is the first objective which is desirable that we must achieve?
Change of heart.
What's that change of heart? What does it look like?
Not to do anything else that's not in line with devotional service.
Okay, sorry, sir.
So you don't want to do anything else that's not favourable for your devotional.
You want to give up. You want to give up materialistic pursuits.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You want to stop. You're not interested in materialistic pursuits anymore. You're not interested in going to the movies or, whether it's sex or drinking or intoxication. It has no attraction for you anymore. It's not like you're attracted and you're like, oh, I mustn't do it, I mustn't do it. It's just not attractive for you anymore. That's the first. That's what we're trying to achieve. We've really become detached. It doesn't bother us anymore.
I think I'd be happy to add as well to the discussion that the heart transformation is happening in that moment when the material qualities is cannot anymore have influence on that individual. Is basically the last greed, anger, illusion, etc.
Yes.
And then in that way is everything is coming and rising up.
So you're saying that means that lust, greed, and anger don't affect us anymore. And then the other things don't bother us anymore. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, it's basically then devotees reciprocate saying
Thank you so much. So we go back. There's a second part of this I want you to hear. What is the only way of creating this change of heart?
Conclusive discussion about Krishna.
Conclusive discussion. Now we can speculate what Prabhupada means by conclusive, but I'm going to suggest to you it means it's fully backed by Shastric evidence. It's not mental speculation. It's not like me coming up with my right ideas. It's supported with evidence from Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. It is authoritative evidence. So that's the only way we can get this change of heart. Is that okay? So now we're going to go to principle 3. And whose turn? I think it's Kalyani.
Principle 3. Discuss Srila Prabhupada's books regularly.
Yes, regularly. Okay, so let's read some evidences about this. Would you like to read the first evidence, Kalyani?
We should gradually come to the Sattva Guna so that we may avoid the 2 lower gunas. This can be done if we regularly discuss Srimad Bhagavatam and hear about Krishna's activities. Nashta Prayeshu, Abhadreshu, Nityam Bhavana Sevaya.
Okay. Can you see the word regularly? What do we have to do? Regularly what?
Discuss.
Regularly discuss. And if we do that, what will happen?
We'll gradually come to Sattva Guna.
Yes, we'll come to Sattva Guna. Thank you. So there's one. I mean, if you go to the web page, we've got loads of evidences, but we're just giving you a little taster. So another evidence, Samija.
So we hear daily, regularly, Nityam, Bhagavata Sevaya. Then Nasta Prayeshu, Abad Prayeshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. If you hear daily.
Yes. So in this quote, how does Prabhupada define regularly?
Every day.
Daily. And that is the way you will get the best result. But I'm going to show you another quote. So Prabhupada gives us a spectrum. It has to be regular, but we can go from daily, or we really can't because we're busy householders who work all week, 12 hours a day. Here's another quote that he taught to a householder. Ramananda, would you like to?
At least one day, this Sunday, you devote seriously studying Bhagavad Gita and discuss amongst you whenever there is any doubt.
So this is a conversation to a householder's house. Kishore Dakashai was not living in the temple. He had a job and family. He had a home outside. So what does Prabhupada say here? He gives a little modification, his idea of regularly. What's his modification?
Just this once a week.
Once a week. So I also say that to household. You can work towards daily, but don't set yourselves up for failure. If you really know you're not going to do it every day, then at least on the weekend, do it once a week, and you will begin to do it more often, because if you're doing it correctly and you do it regularly, you begin to realize that nothing is impacting your overall life, mature and spiritual, as much as this. It is the biggest, highest leverage activity you can put into your life. Because this one activity invites Krishna to get on your side. So with one activity, you now suddenly have huge leverage in every other area of your life. So if you can't start regularly every day, start regularly once a week. So now we're going to go to principle 4. I'm going to make sure I give my husband enough time, because we've got a really interesting one. Sorry, when do I need to stop to make sure you have enough time?
Okay.
So, I think we're on to furniture. Go ahead. Principle 4.
Principle 4. Discuss Srila Prabhupada's books systematically.
Yes, systematically. We don't use Gita or Bhagavatam as an I Ching book. Of course, the trouble with me with that. If we really want the benefit, It has to be systematic. And I have so many quotes on this, but I'm just sharing a few with you. You can see the other quotes, and even on the webpage, I had to control myself how many quotes I put up on the webpage. There's a lot more on the webpage. So now let's look at some evidences. You can read the first quote, Range, because you didn't read them up.
In systematic way, we discuss.
Okay? That's pretty self-evident. I'm saying discuss how? Systematically. So we didn't make up these principles, we were hearing these quotes. Okay, now that's good. Prabhu?
The systematic hearing of the transcendental activities, qualities, and names of Lord Sri Krishna pushes one towards eternal life. Systematic hearing means knowing him gradually in truth and fact. And this knowing him in truth and fact means attaining eternal life, as stated in Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you. What kind of hearing does Prabhupada say we have to do? Please say it loud.
Systematic.
What's the benefit of doing it systematically, hearing it systematically? What is Prabhupada's promise to us?
Eternal life.
We'll get eternal life. And between the systematic hearing and the eternal life, what are the steps we'll go through?
Learning about Krishna gradually.
In truth and in fact, not speculation, not I are this and I think that. In fact, when we began our discussions, my husband had been a devotee at night. He joined me daily in '98. He was answering my questions before that. But so how many years have you been a devotee by '98?
Me, 19 years.
And I've been a devotee 15 years before '96. And since we began doing this systematically, we have actually quite drastically changed our understanding of philosophy. We realized that a lot of things we thought we knew were either our speculation or somebody else's speculation. Because frankly, when we give class, there's a lot of speculation. And I'm not trying to be offensive to anyone, but when we really began scrutinizing and going through Prabhupada's proposal, we had to realize we actually hadn't understood things correctly. So if we do this, we will begin to understand things correctly, and the truth will set us free. So let's carry on. So this is more evidence about the importance of systematic hearing. Andres?
Everything is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, to learn how to become free from the miserable condition of material existence, Bhagavad Gita as it is a preliminary study. Then, if one understands Bhagavad Gita, one can proceed to Srimad Bhagavatam. And if one advances further, one may study Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are therefore presenting these invaluable books to the whole world so that the people may study them and be happy, being delivered from miserable condition of life.
Thank you. So, if we're going to study systematically, and I've heard, the reason I show you these as quotes is because people have challenged me, no, everything is in the CC, you just study CC, that's okay. But that's your speculation. What is Prabhupada saying? And it's not the only quote. So what is the systematic way Prabhupada tells us to study Andres?
We have started with Bhagavad Gita,
yes.
And then when we understand that, we can move on to Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes.
And only then go to Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yes, very nice. And what is the benefit if we do it the way he tells us? According to this quote.
So then we're going to be delivered from miserable condition of life.
Yes. And not only we're delivered from miserable, we just...
Yeah, with obviously the advances.
We'll be happy.
Yeah.
Not only, we're not going to be delivered from miserable and bored, we're going to be happy if we do it correctly. And systematically is part of doing it correctly. So let's just show a few more evidences on this. There's just one more, there's loads of them.
Therefore, Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study of spiritual life. If one can understand Bhagavad Gita, then you can begin Srimad Bhagavatam. If you have not understood Bhagavad Gita, it is useless. You cannot understand Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes. Is it possible to skip over Bhagavad Gita and just go to the higher books?
No way.
No way. Our circle study of the Bhagavatam is useless without us focusing on Gita as well. When we first began, for many years, my husband, poor man, is working, trying to do family and everything else, especially when we're in the temple in Manchester. It's so much. So when he did it with me daily, when we began doing it daily, not just answering my frantic questions, we began with just one book. And it was a day, every day, half an hour a day. But after around 3-4 years, let's put in Prabhupada's full sandwich. And Prabhupada's full ISKCON sandwich is what?
Morning Bhagavatam.
Morning Bhagavatam.
Then service during the day, and at the end Bhagavad Gita at the end of the day.
So we began putting morning Bhagavatam and evening Gita, just half an hour each day. And sometimes we're very tired, but we just keep our hand on that rope. We just want to show Krishna we are trying. We are trying. You know, it's not so much about becoming a great learned scholar. It's about getting Krishna's protection. Okay, Krishna, I am really doing my best to hold on to you. So, but if you can't do 2 a day, start with 1, and that should be Gita. And if you've really understood Gita, if you've understood Gita, that means you're Brahma-Bhuta. If you're not Brahma-Bhuta, if you're still hankering and lament, Gita is essential. It is, we should go through it systematically. So this is a principle 5. I've got 3 more to get through for my husband. So, Sanga, have you read one yet? Have you read?
Yes, I read.
You read, okay. I'm with you.
Principle 5, repeat the meaning in your own words.
This is a very important principle. Repeat the meaning in your own words. We have loads of evidences on this, but I'm just going to share a few with you. Okay, would you like these 2 evidences on one slide because they're short?
Just read from my books and try to explain the meaning in your own words.
See, these are the things we're hearing. We didn't make the principle up. Prabhupada is saying, explain it in your own words. We can be like a parrot, what's it called, slogan religion. We say the slogans, you're not this body Prabhu, or get off the mental platform, you know, but we don't understand what it means. So we're saying, stop reading like a parrot, just repeating the words. We're not saying it, Prabhupada saying, explain it in your own words. Please read the next quote to me.
When we will learn something, we have to repeat it, even in material things, and what to speak of spiritual.
So what is Prabhupada's point in that second one? What's he saying?
To repeat what we learn.
Why?
To learn.
To learn.
To learn. If you don't repeat it, if you sit there passively listening, you're not going to learn it. And if you just repeat like a parrot, you're not going to learn it. You're not going to learn it. The only way you're going to learn it is if you repeat the meaning, but put it in your own words. Because that's when you have to switch your brain on. You don't have to switch your brain on to sit down and listen passively. You don't really have to switch your brain on just to repeat back the same words. You only have to switch your brain on when you've got to capture the meaning and put it in your own words, and that's when you learn. So this is a major principle of improving our Sanga.
It's the saying, repetition is the mother of learning.
Yes, I didn't know that phrase, but it's a good one.
Yes.
And not repetition in its own words. It has to be in your own words. Because that's, you know, we had one quote last week about you have to learn something, but not just like parrot. Remember? Parrot means it becomes slogan religion. I can just parrot it, but I don't understand it. So we're going to use them now. This is another evidence for what? What are we finding evidences for?
Repeating the meaning.
In our own words. Thank you so much.
So to hear and explain them is more important than reading them. One can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. Hearing is called Shravana and explaining is called Kirtana. The 2 processes of Shravana and Kirtana are of primary importance to progressive spiritual life. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject.
Shamanandi, can I just invite you to sit in the circle? Yeah, okay. Come into the circle. So I don't leave you out. As I go around, I don't want to leave you out. So thank you for that. I just want to guide the hearing so we get each part. Is reading the most important thing? No. What's the most important thing?
Hearing and explaining.
Hearing and explaining. Just hearing is not enough. Hearing and then explain what you've heard. That's very important. What is the only way of understanding the Shastra?
Discussion.
Discussion. What does Prabhupada say here about discussion? He uses the word assimilate. So I put assimilate means, understanding and understanding how it applies to your life. That's the way I would. So what's the only way of not just understanding the scripture, but understanding how it can help you in your life? What does Prabhupada say?
You have to practice.
Hearing and explain. Who said that? Yeah, hearing and explaining. So you have to repeat in your own words. This is an important part of the discussion. And it's the only way you're going to be able to take Shastra, understand it theoretically, and then understand how to use that Shastra to solve the problems of your life. You have to hear the Shastra and you have to explain it. This hearing and explaining, what is the technical term for this hearing and explaining? Shravanam Kirtana. Yes, there's another purport but there's another purport where Prabhupada says when we talk about hearing and chanting, Shravanam Kirtana, we don't just mean the holy name, hearing and chanting the holy name, we also mean hearing and discussing books like Gita and Bhagavatam. This is also Shravanam Kirtana. That comes up, always come up as one of our quotes from the we'll show you. Of all the processes of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtan, Vishnu Smaranam, Vandanam, Padasena, etc., which are the two most important? Shravanam, Kirtan. So if you're doing Vandanam or you're doing deity worship or something, Padasevanam, but you don't do Shravanam Kirtanam properly, what's going to happen?
Becomes mechanical.
Is it going to be effective? Because these are primary importance. So these have to be there. They're the most important. They're the engine that runs everything else. Primary importance. Very good. Who's the only person who's going to be able to preach properly? We get a lot of preachers, but we can also preach incorrectly. Who's the only person who will be able to preach correctly?
The right source,
the right source, but as well as the right source, what does this verse say? This quote.
You have to hear properly and be able to explain it properly.
Yes. So if you practice at home or with your groups, hopefully we'll come back to groups, if you're doing it alone, if you practice hearing and explaining in small groups what Prabhupada is saying, not your own views, if you practice this correctly, you'll become a good preacher. And only people who practice this correctly will become good preachers. Otherwise, we speculate a lot in the name of teaching. But you really just
Since you're here, I was remembering Dr. Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually said about Srila Prabhupada that he will preach nicely because he has heard nicely.
Very nice. He likes to hear that.
Yeah,
very nice. Thank you so much. Very supportive of the point we're making. Thank you. So principle 6, we've only got this 3 more to go. I hope I'm giving you enough time. You don't have to hurry me along. Okay, so this is principle 6. So
scrutinize the text, phrase by phrase or word by word.
Yes. I got a lot of resistance to this when I first began trying to, I'll never get through the books like that. No, I like to read a chapter at a time or the purport. I don't like to do it this way. Oftentimes women say, my husband doesn't like to do it this way. He gets bored. He wants to do the whole chapter in one go. But this is what Prabhupada says. So if we can just make these paradigm shifts and follow the principles Prabhupada gives, we'll see a completely different result. Let me show you some evidences remember, we're hearing these things before we have made this principle. We're hearing them, we're making the changes. Now we're presenting you with the things we heard. So, please read the first. I'll just get Adhiguru to do this. Adhiguru, yes. You read the principle, right?
I read the principle.
You can read the first sentences too.
Just try to understand each word. Each word is meaningful.
Yes. So, go ahead, Shamilati.
So by studying Krishna, you become liberated. So these verses should be studied very carefully, understanding each word very carefully, then you will understand Krishna.
Thank you. How are we going to understand Krishna? How are we going to, what does Prabhupada say? How are we going to understand Krishna?
Understanding
each word. If we try to understand each word. If we just read the chapter and want to discuss in overall, are we going to understand Krishna? Is that what Prabhupada said? We just want to read the whole purport, so like 3-4 paragraphs. We just discuss the purport overall. Does Prabhupada say we're going to understand Krishna? Is he guaranteeing? When does he guarantee we'll understand Krishna?
When we read the verse, it says there the verses, each one of the verses. Okay?
Yes, the
That's
verse.
what I'm reading.
So you're saying the verse, that means just the verse itself?
I'm maybe being a bit provocative, but that's what I read when I read that one.
Could we understand the verses without Prabhupada's explanation? Why do you think, like if we just took the verses out of the Gita and we eliminated Prabhupada's purports, is that going to help us?
No.
So the way, and it's our different lights. So when Prabhupada says verses, in my mind, I understand verse and his purport, his explanation of that verse. So that's the way I translated my life. But I really respect the way you translate it, and that's what it's seeing in different lights.
Yes.
But because the verse by itself, I know is not going to help me, I need Prabhupada's Sanga. In my mind, I translate it means the verse with his explanation. Yes.
Can I something to share?
Please do. I won't understand, I won't reflect back sharing, but you can share it.
This is without the reflection.
Yeah.
Sometimes for me happen when I'm studying the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm going through a verse or a few verses, and sometimes it's happening that there's a certain point, maybe in purport or in translation, that I cannot go down more reading. It's just something is squeezing my heart and say just stop, you need to do something, don't bother. And even I try to close my eyes and skip in that situation and go further, I will not understand actually what is the sake here.
Yes, you're given from your personal example and support for the idea that we need to study Prabhupada's purport. Thank you so much. So we're going to look at other evidences. I forget.
Just one other thing about the verses. You're saying each word might mean each word verse. And it does really, because I mean they do have multiple meanings. But for us, we started with that principle. What was the first principle we started on? To hear from the liberated pure devotee.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So to hear from Krishna, but via pure devotee. So that's critical.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Shabanam, maybe you've read Gopi. Do you want to read it?
And each and every verse is so important that if a serious student studies each and every verse, each verse will take at least 1 month to understand. And there are 18,000 verses. So, for serious study of Srimad Bhagavatam, it will take 18,000 months.
Okay, so these are mathematicians. How many years is 18,000 months? Anyone know?
50 years.
50 years. And this was one of the biggest objections that people would give. I don't want to do this every word. I'm going to get through. I'm just going to get through the Bhagavatam. But we can get through Bhagavatam and not be transformed. And I'm not saying you shouldn't read like that as well. I tend to just listen to the audio that I'm just going through. But half an hour a day to this that's when your life transformation will happen. If you can fit more time just reading, great. But this will bring life transformation. So I may not be dancing with the devotees in Krishna at the end of this life. If at the end of this life I get Brahma Bhuta, I'm doing good. Really good.
Actually, it's 150.
150 years. But in my next life I'll continue. And there's so many verses in the Bhagavatam where it says that I just want to take birth here and keep hearing about you. So how, like we've been doing it since together, the Bhagavatam, when did we, 1908 probably, and we're only up to 2nd canto, chapter 9, in our scrutinizing study. We've studied Bhagavatam for other reasons too, because we're trying to rewrite it. But we put half an hour a day for this kind of scrutinizing, and in the last, how many years is it? From 19 to now?
20 odd years.
Whatever, 20 odd years. We're up just to 2nd canto, chapter 9. So you're not going to move fast.
A few more verses.
And that's okay, because when you take birth, hearing, and chant about you're liberated, you're just beginning to kind of like crystallize your devotion for Krishna. You know, people like Srila Prabhupada or Radha Swami or think of any, they don't just have one birth to get to the stage of devotion they're at. Many births to get to that level of devotion. But at least we'll actually start moving forward in our devotion. There'll be some transformation. But if we just read without doing every word, there's not going to be any transformation. So we're going now to principle 7. Have you read already? Okay, so it's you, Annabelle. Would you like to read principle 7?
Principle 7, don't debate. Accept there can be different valid understandings.
So I highly recommend you also read this section, this principle 7, on the web page, because there we bring up a lot of questions on this people doubt, but we go into it with a lot more, if you like, nuances, what kinds of doubts people may have in this, and we try to deal with it at length on the web page. But for now, I just want to share with you as a principle and give you some evidences. So the principle is don't debate. There can be different valid understandings. And if we can make this paradigm shift in the way we discuss, we can stop the fragmentalization of our movement. Because right now, if we have any different way of seeing it, and this was one of the major things that happened in the first 5 years, that if I saw it one way and my husband saw it the other way, we'd end up not talking to each other. It was always my fault, it wasn't his fault. I would end up not talking to him. So we'd argue. And the same phenomenon happens in our movement. If I see it one way and you see it the other way, we end up having 2 movements. And then each movement fractalizes more because we're different individuals and we will see things differently. And that seeing things differently can become our strength if we discuss correctly, or it can become our weakness, our Achilles heel, if we discuss incorrectly. But it should be our strength. So let's look at some evidences. Who read the Annabelle? Would you like to read the first evidence?
Srimad Bhagavatam is as great as Krishna, the Supreme Lord and shelter of everything. In each and every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, and in each of every syllable, there are various meanings.
What does that say?
Every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam has a multitude of meanings.
Yes, and it's very interesting. It says even every syllable. That's what every verse is. But Prabhupada's purports we found also can be understood differently. Who can think of the famous example of this? Of Lord Chaitanya. What was the verse he understood? Atmarama verse. How many different ways did he understand it? 64. And if you look down the way he broke the book words, the same word could mean very wealthy, or it could mean poverty-stricken. It could mean very spiritually advanced, or it could mean just sweetener. Same way, he understood differently. When we would understand something like that differently, we'd end up punching each other in the nose. You're insincere, you're a demon. You know, I mean, the things devotees say to each other return us what could be our strength into a great weakness, but it shouldn't be like that. Sorry.
Yeah, like the Bhagavatam and the Gita, Prabhupada is using different acharyas. And if you read different acharyas, they explain differently. And then, yeah,
there'll be different lines. So, This is very interesting. This is a direct instruction from Srila Prabhupada to Tribhuvan. So let's read that. Okay, I keep forgetting it. Remind me of your name again. Megan.
I am very much stressing nowadays that my students shall increase their reading of my books and try to understand them from different angles of vision. Each sloka can be seen from many, many angles of vision. So become practiced in seeing things like this.
What is Prabhupada stressing nowadays? Now this is 72, okay? So up to 72, he's not been stressing this. He may have been stressing expansion or this and that. But now 72 says, I'm shifting the stress. What's he now stressing, Megan?
People see the slokas in many different ways.
Reading. Yes. That we begin to read them. And how are we going to see from different angles what we're reading?
By doing a discussion with another person.
Yes. Because two people will read two different perspectives. Thank you. And is anyone else? What is Prabhupada's direct instruction to us in this quote? What does he want us to be able to become expert at? Become practice at what? Practice means become expert at seeing things from different angles of vision. Are we currently expert at this? Are we my way or the highway? Or are we practice at seeing things broader from different angles of vision? So, you know, I hope that each of us will begin to practice this and benefit from it and pass this on to other devotees. You know, I really hope that everyone in this room will one day be given these seminars and helping our movement, other devotees, to broaden their perspectives. So it's not this my way or the highway. If you don't see things exactly the way I see things, you're a demon. You know, we're going to ruin our movement like this. I was giving us direct instruction to become practice with this. So now, the last principle I'm dealing with is principle 8, and I don't know who I met, but I think it's you, Elizabeth. Yes. Please read it in a nice loud voice.
Principle 8. Help your partner develop their own understanding by using emphatic hearing skills.
Yes. I'm just going to explain this. Read it one more time and I'm going to help your partner develop their own understanding by using empathic hearing skills. So what does this mean? It means if I'm reading this sentence and I understand it one way and my husband understands it a different way, I don't try to minimize. I reflect back to him what he's understanding and I reflect back to him with empathy. I want him to win. I want him to be able to develop his understanding. Because his understanding is different from mine, I don't try to kind of like build a straw man. So you're saying blah, 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 and say it in a way that makes him feel like he's an idiot. I will understand him in a way that will make him feel, yes, I'm thinking it through better. My understanding is becoming clearer to me. Even though I may disagree with him, I'll have my chance to do my understanding. And he'll give me the same kind treatment. He'll help me to develop my understanding, even if he disagrees with me, without trying to subtly, with his tone of voice or with anything else, make me sound like I'm an idiot. We're going to help each other, not try to sabotage each other. Okay? So that's the principle, help each other by doing really good empathic listening. So there is no direct evidence for this. I'm going to share with you how we came to this principle. The direct evidence we read or heard, because I was listening to CC, I don't study CC, I don't listen to it, were these two evidences. Elizabeth, it's still your turn to read. Would you be kind enough to read these two evidences from the CC?
Generally, by myself, I cannot give an explanation, but by the strength of your association, something may manifest itself.
This is Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami, and I think it was around the Admirana verse. Go ahead, read the next question.
Now, due to your association, another meaning has awakened. It is due to your devotional service that these waves of meaning are arising.
So I'm going to read the quotes again, just so that you can pick them up. Generally, by myself, I cannot give an explanation, but by the strength of your association, something may manifest itself. Now, due to your association, another meaning has awakened. It is due to your devotional service that these waves of meaning are arising. So, Lord Chaitanya is telling Sanatana Goswami, I hadn't been thinking these things, but there's something you're doing. There's some way that you are reciprocating with me. There's some devotional service you're rendering that's helping me to say these things. Yeah. And we remember when we heard this, we were thinking, what is Sanatana Goswami doing? But the way we were associating up until that point was that the way we associated made the other person close down. We were always arguing with the other person's perspective, so the other person couldn't think. So we were thinking, what on earth was Sanatana Goswami doing? And Lord Chaitanya is saying, it's something you're doing that's helping me speak so well, and it's helping me think of things I hadn't thought of before. And it was around this same time that Mukunda Maharaj had given my husband a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which we were both reading. I highly recommend this book to everybody. And we were reading the section about empathic listening in his chapters. I forget which principle it is. He has seven principles. Seek first to understand, yes.
Fifth one, isn't it, I think? Only one.
Be proactive, then seek first to understand. I forget, anyway, it's one of the principles he has. So we were reading the things he was saying in his book, and this is what we read, and in our minds, we thought, well, we're not exactly sure what Sanatana Goswami was doing, but if we did what Stephen Covey's doing, it will have the same effect. It will help each other, the way Sanatana Goswami was helping Lord Chaitanya. So I'm going to show you now some of the quotes we read from 7 Habits. It's you.
The one who listens does the most work, not the one who speaks.
Yes. Yes. The one who listens. Sanatana Goswami was doing the most work. He was enabling Lord Chaitanya to speak. So Covey says the same thing. He says, the key things is the skills of the listener, not the skills of the speaker. Because the skills of the listener are crucial to the discussion. So let me show you another quote. Kalyani.
Emphatic listening skills, in part, give others psychological air, open space in which a person may explore feelings, vent emotions, and feel understood without being judged. These skills include capturing feelings from non-verbal cues, listening attentively, and phrasing emphatic responses clearly, supportively, and sincerely. But while all of these skills are important, attitude is even more important for allowing others psychological air. To work effectively, skills must be built on a caring attitude and sincere desire to understand.
Thank you so much. This is the key one that, when I do, and I will offer coaching to all of you. You don't have to take it, but I will offer it because it's one thing to know, it's another thing to do. But this is the key one where I find most of us need work on. Learning to be an empathic listener and having the right attitude that we really want to serve the other person. We're not just trying to understand them in order to show them how stupid they are and to prove our point. We're trying to understand them to really give them the psychological space they need to think and to feel and to assimilate what they're reading. So most of the coaching sessions are around these. And a lot of things come into play. Body language, our tone of voice, everything conveys my attitude. Do I want to help you, or am I bored with you? Do I want to help you, or do I just want to prove my point and make you look stupid? So this is a key area where we hope if we follow through with you, we can help begin to change our practice. It's around this principle 8. I think I have a couple of no, that is the last bit of my presentation, the first 8 principles.
I want to get also on that, but we have to, it begins with respect, right? You know, the willingness to actually empathically hear someone, you know, to give them the time, the psychological air to really reflect that. You have to have respect for them. And, you know, seeing everyone as a spiritual equal. Because I think one of the problems is with this is, why should I hear from my wife? Or, you know, why should I hear from my child? Even my child, you know, might be discussing with me, and well, they've got nothing of any value to say, you know.
I'm a senior devotee.
I'm senior. I've been, you know, 1 year more in the movement than this person, so I know more. But you know, if we accept, well, no, Krishna can speak through anyone. Krishna is in the heart of everyone. So let me take the time to really understand this person, because when you do that, you open yourself up as well to the possibility of change. You know, because one of the blocks to the empathic hearing is you're not open to changing your own point of view. You're just fixed in that. You just let them get, you know, they can say what they want to say, because I know, you know, what I know, and I'm not going to change it. You know, so, but we want to be open to the possibility that what we know may not be actually, you know, correct even, or it may be that their understanding is another valid light, because earlier we were saying there are different ways to understand, different lights. So someone else may have a different valid light, even though they're a younger devotee, even though it's, you know, a woman and a man, you know. But still, you know, we can learn from each other if we're open to that, if we let Krishna come in to the equation, you know, to the dynamic.
It's very nice what you're saying. And, you know, the 13 items of knowledge that we give us, how many items? I think 19 items of knowledge in the 13th chapter. The first is humility and pridelessness. If we go into a discussion with a big false ego, it's not going to work. If we go in with humility, realizing I'm simply a part and parcel of Krishna. I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I'm not a sannyasi, I'm not a householder, I'm not a shudra. I am simply a servant, and so is this person. You know, my age makes no difference to who I really am. My status makes no difference to who I really am. My sex makes no difference to who I really am. Let me come into this as Sadhu, Sanga. You know, then we begin to get something from it. The very last seminar we give is about Grihastha life. And unfortunately, our Grihastha ashram has a greater difficulty rate and divorce rate, I've heard, than outside marriages. Because we're really hung up on man-woman. And I remember listening to one Prabhupada memory, so one devotee was saying Prabhupada. The Prabhupada is my wife to say do everything I tell her, because I'm the guru. It would be so arrogant. Would you be that arrogant? I'm not saying women shouldn't do what their husbands say. And when women talk to me personally, I always encourage them to do what their husbands say. But the marriage, if it remains man and woman, it will struggle. When it becomes man and woman on one level in our mature duties, but in our discussions it becomes Sadhu, Sanga, then we will really begin to grow. In our discussions, we're not man or woman. In our discussions, we're Sadhu, Sanga. So I will now let my husband sit here.
Are there any questions just on that last little section, because we're going to have a break in a minute, so we can, you know, switch over to another presentation. But I know that. For
me, it's not clear what is the difference between debate and discuss.
What is the difference between debating and discussing?
Yeah.
I would like you to read the principles on the web page, but did you want to answer? Debate is I'm trying to prove you wrong. That's the basic debate. I have a position and I'm going to prove you wrong. You have a position, I have a position. And I'm trying to win and you're trying to win. So both of us are trying to prove the other right. Discussion, I'm not. I'm trying to help you win. I'm trying to help you think your thoughts through, even if they're different from mine. And I leave it to your discretion if you like the way I think or not. But you are also doing the same thing for me. You're trying to help me develop my understanding with as much courtesy, respect, and empathy as you can, and you're going to leave it to my own discretion whether I incorporate your understanding or not. Whereas debate is really about proving each other wrong and winning. Discussion is about helping the other person win.
Everyone okay with that? Do you have a question?
Oh yeah, I have quite a few questions, but it's just a little bit.
So we can say something?
Maybe this is going to be the first question, which is about that if we will understand the scriptures, we become liberated. But if we didn't pass the anartha-niviti, how we can enter to the nishta, and then basically the liberation stage, because there's a Brahma Bhuta when you don't see anything only as a service, not where service to the Lord, but you still have that within your heart. Please explain that.
You want to understand this question?
Yes, well, what I understand you're saying is, because we were saying earlier that there was a quote that if you just by hearing you'll become liberated. And you're saying, well, liberated means at least nishta, which means you've passed anartha-nivritti. So if you're hearing and you still have anarthas in your heart, how can you be liberated? You know, you have to get to that stage.
Yeah, because this is scriptures explain the processes of gradual, step by step, and the love of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it takes time to get free of the anarthas, achieve nishta, and go on to higher levels of ruchi, shakti, and so on. But if you're still in that stage of clearing the heart, you're saying, you're not liberated, even though you're hearing.
Yeah, that's basically it's not done.
Do you have any light on your own question?
It's very difficult to come to the right conclusion. Of course, this is a gradual process, and Prabhupada is give the broad vision that we need to do gradually everything. And when you're listening, this not means you become immediately liberated. You become liberated when you're ready to be liberated. It's important to be steady and systematically study the scriptures and hearing them from the pure devotees, which is giving you the realization of the nishta, of liberated stage. And then you will practically, personally will experience that you cross the anartha-nivritti, which not naturally comes from the mercy.
So you're saying it's a process, not an event, you know, that it takes time, that you're hearing, and you keep hearing, and you're gradually making progress, and at some point, by hearing, because you're hearing properly from the right person in the right way, you will achieve liberation. It's the means by which you'll achieve liberation, but it takes time.
Yeah, sure. Yes. That will be mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there is a Bhagavatam quote, which we heard, Nashta Praisha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhakti Nashti. The Nashta Praisha, which all the abhatras, all the anarthas leave the heart by Nityam Bhakti Sevaya, by regularly hearing Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says of the Gita. So that's how we go through the anartha-nivritti. Otherwise, if we don't improve our hearing, we can be around for 40 years, 50 years, and the same anarthas will be there. It's not that for 40 years, 50 years we're not going to have any anarthas. I think as a discreteness, starting with so many, after 50 years I'll still have some, but at least I'll have walked through some of my anarthas. Otherwise I'm not walking through any of them. So should we... I'm just also really considering...
We've got no time. Okay, go ahead.
I was just thinking that it's so difficult to really. It's okay to want to hear another person, try and understand them, and to analyze the scripture, but to actually do that in practice, to sit down and really hear another person, it's so difficult.
Very difficult.
So I was just thinking that it almost seems like we want to get to that stage where we become humble first, because through our spiritual practice, and then we can actually sit down together and have this conversation. So, you know, putting the cart before the horse. So are we just going to fail a lot? Is that the? I mean, I imagine I will be.
Can I have a second? You're saying it is so difficult to carve out your own thoughts and responses and actually hear the other person with the courtesy they need. And you're saying it seems as if first we have to come to the mode of goodness before we can do that, because if we're still affected by righteous and tamas, we're just going to keep feeling it.
Yeah.
Can I send you?
That's right.
It is difficult, but don't wait until you come to the mode of goodness. By keep endeavoring to do this, you will come to the mode of goodness. And one of the things is, when the other person is doing it for you, there's a little anecdote I share with the ladies, actually. This is a Buddhist joke. It's a Buddhist explanation of heaven and hell, explaining the joke. So a man goes to Lord Buddha, and he says, Lord Buddha, what is the Buddhist conception of hell? And Lord Buddha says, let me show you. I'll take you to hell. And he takes him to this banquet room. It's a beautiful room, and nice chandeliers and a huge banquet table with piled high with all the most delicious food. And around the banquet table are sitting all these starving people with a pole between their arms and their arms tied together like this. So even though they're faced with this, succulent, mouth-watering food, they're all starving because they can't feed themselves. And that's hell. The man goes, oh, this is hellish. My God, imagine sitting here for eternity. You're all starving, and you're faced with rasgulas and samosas and paneer, and you can't eat any of it. It's torture. It's terrible. And he says, what's your heaven like? Because your hell is pretty bad. What's your heaven like? Well, just come with me. Takes him to the room next door. It's an exactly duplicate room, duplicate chandeliers, duplicate banquet table with the duplicate preparations on it, and the people sitting around it exactly the same, arms tied in front of each other with a pole, but they're all fat and jolly, and they're laughing and enjoying, and they're eating to the heart's delight. What is the key difference between heaven and hell? Do you know what they were doing differently?
How sharp was the pole? Were they stabbing each other?
No, they weren't stabbing each other, the poles
No,
were
they
there.
kept giving it to the next person.
They were feeding each other. They were feeding each other. Whereas in the first one, everyone was trying to feed themselves and they were in the living hell. And the second one, they were feeding each other and they were all jolly. And that's one of the reasons so many of us as devotees, even though we have come to the highest possible way to truly transform our lives and permanently put a full stop to our suffering and bring us to eternal happiness, we're miserable, we're suicidal, and we're depressed. Many, I'm not saying everyone. And we often feel isolated and alienated from each other because we're all trying to feed each other, ourselves. We all want validation for me. We all want to be treated with respect, but we don't give it to the other. And in the discussion coaching and the discussion processes, the key thing, at least when I do the discussion coaching, I focus on, is learning to forgive the other person what we so desperately crave for ourselves. Because if we start feeding our neighbor will start feeding us. And we'll both begin to feel the kind of validation and the emotional nourishment and the spiritual nourishment that we each of us so desperately crave. And when we begin to feel that I'm also being fed, then it will make us feel, okay, if I want to be fed, I need to feed my discussion partner. Otherwise, if I don't feed them, if I don't give them the value, they're going to stop feeding me. And we'll both end up in hell. This strong self-interest should make us realize the importance of doing this. Should we pause? Because I do want to give my husband time to do the second part. It's slightly more complicated than my part.
Alright, so we'll stop for 15 minutes and come back.
You can ask privately if you like. Is that okay? So, give you 15 minutes. So it's now past. And we'll start.